Hey everyone! This is the second half of episode 62, Taking the Pink Pill. Sit back as we continue discussing right-wing influencers and their regressive movement to put limits on socially and legally acceptable behavior of women. We will then take a walk down the scary path that starts at relatively mundane misogyny and ends at violent right-wing extremism. It bears repeating that misogyny is a gateway drug for the alt-right. When righties can get through to men and to women with messages trashing feminism, it gets their foot in the door to start selling other ideas about racism, immigration, economic policy, conspiracies, and so forth. The pushers of those gateway drugs have tapped into the female market quite successfully, and as it turns out, they don't even need Rush Limbaugh. They can possibly do even better with right-wing content by women for women. I'm calling this pink pilling. And I have noticed that pink pilling comes in basically two varieties, which I will call hard pink and soft pink. Hard pink is your Jeanine Pirros.
Think about it. Omar wears a hijab, which according to the Quran 33:59 tells women to cover so they won't get molested.
Your Dana Loesch's.
I'm not going to be lectured by this fake feminist women's organization, and in fact, I dare say that if these fake feminists want to see some real women, real empowered women, women who actually support and encourage varied viewpoints, they can take a trip to the NRA.
And your Kimberly Guilfoyles.
Ladies and gentlemen, leaders and fighters for freedom and liberty and the American dream, the best is yet to come.
These ladies are certainly doing fine. They're making a good living. They have their fan bases. Dana Loesch has 27,000 YouTube subscribers. Jeanine Pirro has a show on Fox News that sometimes comes out at the top of the ratings for weekend cable news shows. She also was able to get a pardon for her ex-husband from Donald Trump about 45 minutes before Biden was sworn in as president. Al Pirro Jr. has served about 2 years in prison for tax evasion. I can't say whether Jeanine actually had anything to do with him getting the pardon or if it was just due to his own connections with Donald Trump since they had previously done real estate deals together, so that's nice. As for Kimberly Guilfoyle, well, she's taking some time right now to focus on her music. So those are the primary examples of hard pink pillars. As you might suspect, though, women by and large prefer their conservative propaganda packaged in pills of the soft pink variety. It's hard to find anything softer and pinker than Girl Defined.
What's up, sisterhood? It is Kristen and Bethany here, and we're going to be talking about crazy girl emotions. I don't know about you, there have been a few tears that have come from these eyes. Yours too. Yeah. Emotions are hard, and we can feel like crazy girls. We talk about that, like, where you just feel like ups and downs.
Oh, yeah.
So how do you have a stable life and embrace emotions in the right way? We're going to talk about that, but
But
first,
I want to share with you a few things.
Left tubers love to throw crap at Girl Defined, and there are good reasons why. Some of it is just because we're plain mean, and throwing shade at conservative religious fundamentalists feels good. But that's not all it's about. Girl Defined and influencers like them spread a toxic message, and it's necessary to speak out about it and to try to reach people to show that there are alternative ways of thinking. All that said, we should not overdo it lest we help build these people up into a bigger deal than they are. Girl Defined has well under 200,000 YouTube subscribers at this time. For conservative pundits, that's small potatoes. Not that their following is anything to sneeze at. I have well under 200 YouTube subscribers at this time, so how much bigger is their impact than mine? Do the math, move the decimal point, fill in bubble C on your Scantron, and the answer is 1,000 times bigger. Girl Defined, for the uninitiated, is a YouTube channel, but it is also a ministry, so we are talking unveiled proselytizing and tax avoidance. You go, Girl Defined. The actual influencers here are sisters Bethany and Kristen. They come from a large Christian Fundy family in Texas, and they exemplify all the bigotry and regressivism that religious fundamentalism implies. Their mission, as they put it, is to encourage women to live a God-defined life in a culture-defined world. What is a God-defined life? I refer you to a blog article by Kristen. The title of the article is Self-Esteem, Why Christian Girls Don't Need It. Here, Kristen writes, quote, "We can love ourselves to the moon and back and will still struggle with feelings of worthlessness. Why? Because we aren't good enough on our own. The only way to completely overcome low self-esteem is to recognize where your good comes from. Christ is the only good in you. He is the one you should be focused on loving and esteeming." End quote. In other words, you as a human woman don't matter. Your feelings and wants and hopes and dreams don't matter. What matters is serving God and also serving the men that God put you on earth to help. How do you accomplish this? Read the Bible, watch their channel, and buy their books. There it is. Of course, there's financial gain in it for them. Tax-free financial gain. Here's a clip from Girl Define's video titled 8 Reasons We Aren't Feminists.
If you're familiar with our ministry, you know that we created Girl Defined to help Christian girls understand how to get back to God's design for their lives. Because really, girls as a whole don't understand why they were created, what their purpose is.
Girls don't understand. They're too stupid.
We're obviously both women.
Are you? Are you obviously both women? To them, yes, because they strictly uphold traditional binary gender, traditional gender roles, and traditional gender presentation. That being the case, though, it would seem to go without saying that they're obviously women, yet they point it out to their audience anyway.
In truth, feminism is the radical idea that women are God, capable of being their own authorities.
Citation needed.
So basically, if you want to accept and embrace all of the ideologies and thoughts that go along with modern feminism, you really have to reject so much of God's word. Yeah, there are good ideas here and there, but if you're going to embrace it as a whole, you really do have to become your own God and say, no, I'm going to define my womanhood.
Like Bethany just said, no matter how much you really airbrush feminism, no matter how good of a light you paint it in, at its core, it truly is a religion of sorts. It's a worldview. It's an ism that is seeking to redefine womanhood according to our own terms. What we as women say we want when it comes to our sexuality, our identity, our beauty, our value, our worth, what we define in those areas is what we say goes, rather than saying, okay, hold up, what does God's word say? Now I'm going to align my life and my womanhood according to his truth.
Did they taste good, those cherries that you're picking? The Bible also said that women can't have ministries. Women are supposed to be silent in church. If they have any questions about God, they're supposed to ask their husband. These girls are doing what everyone else who's religious does, cherry pick what they want from the scriptures, and figure that God understands these so-called laws exactly the same way that they do individually, so everyone is actually their own God, at least in American religion.
And number 2, sexual liberation is praised. Believe it or not, but the majority of feminist women used to be totally opposed to pornography because they were like, that's objectifying women. We don't want that. We have standards. We have values. We want people to value our bodies. But nowadays, as you probably know, that is not the case. There are so many modern feminists who are proudly posing topless, who are proudly posing naked for the camera and saying, yes, we throw off the morals, throw off the boundaries, throw off the restraints. We want to do what we want to do. We want to proudly show off our bodies. No more morals, no more boundaries.
Sexual liberation bad. Also, sexual liberation equals being a big old porno fan. And that's wrong? Just on biblical terms, I don't think that's wrong. Adam and Eve were naked in the Garden of Eden, not ashamed of it. That's supposed to be humanity at its most pure and innocent, and sex workers, righteous and godly sex workers, are all over the Bible.
And number 4, male leadership is despised. Let's just be honest. There aren't a whole lot of women these days who are coming alongside of men, encouraging the leadership, championing them, saying, yes, you can do this, you've got it. No, when a man steps up and takes the lead, women these days really are offended by it. It's like a personal offense. Like, why are you taking the lead? What do you think? I can't do it. Let me take the lead.
I wonder how these two women would feel about feminism if they were ever forced by their circumstances to go out into the working world. But I'm not here to debate Girl Defined. I'm here to explain what their message is and whether their influence is harmful. That actually has been done earlier and better by another YouTuber, social worker and therapist Mickey Atkins, who does fantastic content, including this video that is linked in the show notes.
I'm wearing my gay sweater because I wanted to rep my queerness while we talk about religious fundamentalist people who are hateful and exclusionary and bigoted and prejudiced. So let's jump back into this video. Here we go.
Like, this is what it means to be enough. This is what it means to really, find myself and be single and whole on my own, only to end up, I guess, 8 months after this whole thing started in a counselor's office with her telling me, hey, you physically cannot maintain this lifestyle anymore or else you will die.
So yeah, this is the thing that is frustrating to me. She's using her personal experience with what we have already identified as a shame spiral based on a number of different factors to justify her worldview that self-love and self-loathing are inherently wrong and sinful and not biblical. The problem with this, again, is that she's not a mental health professional. She's not using any kind of research to inform her opinion. She's using her own life experience, doubling down on a feeling of shame, and using that to then write a book and peddle this belief to other people who are vulnerable young women who are forming their sense of identity. This behavior is inherently predatory, and that's why I take issue with people saying, just let people do what they want to do. People have different opinions and that's okay. No, it's not, because this is not an opinion. This is not something that they feel strongly about for their own personal lives, but they zip the lips about it and just mind their own business. They're actively trying to recruit other people into this lifestyle that is predatory, that is harmful, and that is the opposite of all of the relevant research and fact-based information that we have about self-esteem and about our sense of identity.
There you have it from a professional. Girl Defined is predatory and toxic, and when it comes to advice for personal development, not all viewpoints are equal. Religious leaders in general have an awful tendency to steer people away from science-based solutions such as therapy, and instead steer people towards faith-based solutions. This directly fosters misery and sometimes violence, such as when abusive people don't get the professional help they need. Religion is so pervasive in American culture that even professional therapists sometimes push it on their clients. Many people have been actually unable to find a therapist who won't push Jesus or prayer on them, and this is why the Secular Therapy Project was started. So if you are having difficulty finding a therapist, go to seculartherapy.org, search their network, and if you are a therapist who uses state-of-the-art, non-religious methods, I encourage you to register with Secular Therapy Project at seculartherapy.org. Now, what if you are a conservative woman and you are interested in the meaning of womanhood beyond the teachings of Jesus? Maybe you're not even Christian and you're more interested in, say, how to do your hair and makeup without signaling to men that you're a liberal feminist whore. Well, thanks to the magic of a shit ton of advertising money, you can type the words conservative woman into YouTube and be hit with a bunch of videos by this up-and-comer who many have called the Jewish version of Girl Defined. Hey, classic ladies. Today we're gonna dish the scoop, so grab a cup of water, or if you want to be a little wild, put a spritz of lemon and just let's chat. Let's chat just like we're friends, by which I mean you shut up and I talk the whole time. Just kidding. It's classically Abby.
Hello, classic crew, and welcome to today's episode of The Scoop. If you are new to my channel, The Scoop is our opportunity to catch up, go over what went on over the course of the week, and just act like we're grabbing a cup of coffee together. And here on my channel, we talk about commentary, lifestyle, beauty, fashion, and opera, all from a conservative and classic perspective. If that's something that you'd like, feel free to subscribe and make sure to ring that notification bell so you're notified of all my new videos. Grab a cup of coffee, a cup of tea, some water, whatever it is you want, and let's get into it. So the first thing that I want to talk about today is Dr. Seuss. Dr. Seuss Enterprises has decided to stop printing 6 of Dr. Seuss's books. Dr. Seuss was not a racist. This is book burning.
Classically Abby is a self-described conservative influencer who really wants you to listen to her and who really wants you to think of her as your friend, and she's the best kind of friend, the kind that's constantly telling you what you're doing wrong in your life and how she has it all together and how you should be more like her. Don't you love those kinds of friends? Her branding, or whatever you call it, is to use the word classic to describe everything that we should want to be as women, and by classic she means conservative, and by conservative she means whatever she thinks is conservative. I'll tell you one thing about her that's not conservative, her approach to pandemic safety. Here she is on Twitter in November of 2020, influencing people about how she just partied at her friend's wedding reception and then took 4 airplane flights in a day to get home. What a socially responsible role model. She apparently has been out and about a lot during this pandemic. She made one video about going to Disney World and another one about how to make travel plans in a classic way. She talks a lot about going out with friends and visiting people. Real healthy. Real healthy. What's the matter, Abby? Your perfect classic June Cleaver home not satisfying enough? By the way, classically Abby's real name is Abigail Shapiro Roth. She is the younger sister of Ben Shapiro, which unfortunately and somewhat unfairly to her, just taints her whole persona. I say somewhat unfairly because Abby never actually mentions her relation to Ben Shapiro, at least not that I've seen. Nonetheless, my brain cannot help but process her as an extension of Ben Shapiro. And maybe that's my bad, but in my defense, she's so similar to her brother. She resembles him in all the worst ways. She's basically the female version of him. Picture Ben Shapiro, but he's a woman, and he's giving you style advice. There you go, that's Abby. She's the only wannabe influencer, to my knowledge, who has the audacity to call herself an influencer from the jump. Influencer is a label that is given by others usually to someone who has millions of followers. Classically, Abby's YouTube channel has under 100,000 subscribers. She has a little over 50,000 followers on Twitter and about 7,000 followers on Facebook. I looked up a recent list of top YouTube influencers, and I will tell you, Katy Perry is on there at a mere number 10 with 38 million subscribers. Number 1 is PewDiePie, and I'm only vaguely aware of who he is. I really don't care. He's some sort of sexist gamer or something. I have no interest. Classically, Abby's brand is not just influencer, though. It's conservative influencer. In fact, Abby has proclaimed herself to be the first conservative influencer, which is just false all day long. Google conservative influencer. Abby Shapiro will not even be in your results. Tons of people more popular than her will be, including Amanda Ensing, who made the news for losing her sponsorship deal with Sephora due to her promoting Donald Trump. Classically, Abby definitely knows about Amanda Ensing since she made a video about it and said that she also lost a sponsor, perhaps the only sponsor she ever had.
So the first thing that I want to talk about today is another content creator here on YouTube, and her name is Amanda Ensing. So she has over 1 million subscribers. She is a beauty YouTuber, and she has done an incredible job of building up her business. But she came out as conservative, and of course that isn't allowed, and ever since she did, she has been getting in hot water. But she came out as conservative, and of course people hated it. As you guys know on my channel, it is something that we have to talk about constantly, is the idea that conservatives are not allowed to speak up and say what we truly believe.
Boo-hoo! The free market doing its thing, how evil! I don't think the market cares about your feelings, Abby. Like I said, Abby has had to do a lot of Google advertising to build up her audience on YouTube, and she's not even to 100,000 subscribers yet. In case you aren't steeped in the YouTube culture, you may not know the importance of the 100,000 subscriber mark. That's when you kind of become somebody on the platform. YouTube sends you a little silver plaque. So getting to 100,000 subscribers, you can start to think of yourself as like, I don't know, a D-list YouTube celebrity. Classically, Abby is growing, but certainly not as fast as she wants to. I think people tend to see through her. She comes across as fake and uncharismatic. She wants to sell this hey girlfriend vibe, but she's just not warm or likable. She has a judgmental nature. It comes through in everything, even her stupid hair tips, like she knows better than the rest of us what being feminine is. She started her channel because apparently, just out of the blue, she decided she should be a quote-unquote influencer, even though she seems to have nothing to offer experience-wise. She doesn't appear to have ever had a real job. She studied opera singing, as she reminds us multiple times in her website bio. She has a penchant for religious and patriotic songs. Abigail has a bachelor's degree in music from USC and a master's degree and professional certificate from the Manhattan School of Music. It seems like she wanted singing to be her career, but she's just not good enough. And I say that as a fellow singer who is also not good enough to go full professional. Abby does have 2 known screen credits. She played one of the Golden Goblet singers in Season 3 of Glee. And when she was a kid, she starred in the 2007 film called A Light for Grey Towers. It's a musical about Jewish orphans. It's literally Jewish Annie. And the trailer, which I will play for you now, is like an SNL parody sketch.
She has a mother.
Well, let's just say she did, until recently.
My, what sour faces. What is the meaning of this? Your hands could be cleaner, Emma. You've taken my fresh loaf, you stupid girl! Go and get the other one from the lower shelf. Oh.
One, the boss, here is you. 2, we shall never overeat.
I'm not stealing! These candlesticks are mine!
They're nothing of a sort.
I must talk to you, Ladies Beamish. You must promise to keep Shabbos, whatever happens.
Not very pleasant, is it? The only religion you'll keep here is obeying my orders.
We won't give in.
We shall see.
The sun'll come schwitz tomorrow. Since Classically Abby started her channel a little over a year ago, something about her has captured the attention of leftist YouTubers. I don't just mean the fact that she constantly shows up in YouTube recommends due to the decadent advertising budget, though that is certainly the reason why we know about her in the first place. She must get the money either from her rich parents, her rich brother, or her rich husband, who, by the way, is an absolute shit for brains. Mr. Classically Abby, aka Jacob Roth, is a Nebraska-based attorney employed by Young America's Foundation. Young America's Foundation is an affiliate of Young Americans for Freedom. Both of these organizations were founded by William F. Buckley Jr. According to the Twitter page for Young America's Foundation, they introduce students to conservatism through campus programs and conferences. They also preserve the Reagan Ranch. According to Jacob Roth's Twitter page, if you like him, you should also follow Koch Industries, as you can see there from the recommendations. Here he is tweeting that gun rights are human rights, either seriously or as a joke, either way, dumb as hell. Here he is retweeting some sort of convoluted anti-social distancing political cartoon from his employer. Here he is being anti-trans. Here he is being anti-trans again. And here he is tweeting that the Windsor royal family is unimportant. He says that the Stuarts are the ones that are really worth caring about, and he misspells Stuart. So that is the partner that Classically Abby, our all-knowing spirit guide, chose to be with for life, I'm sure, because divorce would not be classic. Abby always says faith and family come first, so no divorce allowed. Insert here with your mind a montage of about a dozen different YouTubers talking about Classically Abby, because that's what I would put together, but I ain't got that kind of time. For the last year, we just all have had to talk about her, and good on her for generating that much controversy and attention. If you don't mind getting about 30,000 dislikes to counterbalance your 10,000 likes on each video, then follow the Classically Abby model, call yourself an influencer, get someone to give you tons of money for ads, and then go online with your holier-than-thou, condescending, self-satisfied, uncompassionate, right-wing opinions about every damn thing and every damn body.
I've not been a fan of the Meghan Markle and Prince Harry thing from the beginning, just because I think it's disrespectful to the tradition. And when you marry into a family, when you marry a man, you're not marrying just him. You're not marrying, it's similar to what I was saying before. You're not just marrying for love, you're marrying his family, you're marrying his responsibilities, you're marrying his duties. And it's your responsibility as a wife to support him through those things. And Meghan, instead of supporting him through those things, said, let's get out of here, let's run away. And what was especially telling to me was that Prince Harry said, I didn't know that I was feeling these things until Meghan pointed it out to me.
He had
and
to get
that
woke up.
Is what, I was gonna say, that is what we like to call being woke. And I don't appreciate it.
Both Abigail and her husband hate wokeness. That's another thing the husband likes to tweet about. He says wokeists are Maoists. He's very obsessed with the Chinese regime. It's weird. There's something about Classically Abby. She's one of those people that just makes you go, ah. She's a frustrating person. Part of it is because she spews bullshit and you just want to clap back, but there's also something else about her. She's not as extra as your Tommy Lahrens or your Michelle Bachmans, or heaven forbid, your Marjorie Taylor Greens. She's a little more relatable. She almost seems reachable. In other words, she's just human enough to be real, and that makes her somehow a lot more annoying. I'm not alone in this opinion. If you look at her YouTube like to dislike ratio and the comments on her videos, she does not have a loyal following. She's not quite finding her audience. Not that I'm an expert on finding a YouTube audience by any means, but to me it just does not seem like she's enough of any of the things that people like. She falls between the metaphorical bar stools. If she wants to talk conservative politics and social issues, she doesn't go nearly far enough. She'll preach about the evils of abortion and premarital sex, and how women look like sluts if they wear short skirts, but she doesn't know how to dog whistle like her brother Ben Shapiro. She won't say denigrating things about black people like he does, or perpetuate kooky conspiracy theories like Marjorie Taylor Greene and Alex Jones, or Steven Crowder. As a religious influencer, she is far outclassed by the likes of Girl Defined, and sorry Abby, but most religious right-wingers are Christian and are not interested in what your Jewish ass has to say about God because they think you're going to hell. If you haven't figured it out, Abby, they only pretend to be on the same team with Jews because it's politically convenient for them. And as far as far-right Jews, they would call you a shanda. You're not even wearing a wig or covering your hair. Speaking of hair, Abby is not nearly skilled enough to be a beauty influencer. Her clothes, her hair, and makeup are basic AF. Don't get me wrong, I think she looks very nice, but she ain't no Amanda Ensing. At the end of the day, Classically Abby's videos are just not very entertaining. She doesn't seem to spend much time script writing or researching or preparing bits. She's not very informative or insightful. And for someone who seems to want so much to be our internet parasocial friend, she shares very little about herself and her life. Once again, Abby, why are you qualified to be an influencer? What is your experience? What are your achievements? She's done a couple of very minor opera roles apparently, and that's all we know. Almost every one of her Instagram photos is just her. No one else in there, no friends or acquaintances or anything. Sometimes her husband is with her. What do you even do with yourself, Abby, besides put on outfits and do your hair and makeup? Your life sounds depressing. Have you ever helped anybody? Have you ever done volunteering or visited any really poor communities or even gotten involved with a rich white savior philanthropy organization? Anything like that at all? Her mission, as she sees it, is just to tell fellow women what is feminine. The Moses of mascara. And I am again it. It's dangerous. For too long of a fucking time, it was considered unfeminine to do just about anything, including education and career, and many so-called conservative influencers still say so. See The Transformed Wife. Classically Abby talks all the time about how motherhood is just the most womanly way to woman. This is where I start to feel some genuine sorrow and compassion for her because I don't see any babies, and I think she might be struggling to make them, and due to her worldview, if she cannot make babies, she is in for a lot of trauma and perhaps self-hatred, so I hope she has a good therapist. I don't know, maybe Josh's little sperms are just too dumb to find the egg. I said that I was not going to show you a montage of a dozen other YouTubers reacting to Classically Abby, but I will show you some spot-on commentary from two of my favorite channels. First up is RM Brown, whom you should totally follow. He does criticism of right-wing media, and he is very sharp and posts pretty much every day, lots of great content. Here he is discussing Classically Abby.
I cannot avoid this ad for some reason, which is Classically Abby. And this is a weird situation because clearly they're dumping... These ads are expensive, but I'm glad this is unpopular because, you know, this is kind of a classic, kind of like fashy, a little bit of a fashy attitude of like traditional masculinity and tradition and just arbitrary tradition is good and all this kind of stuff. There's a kind of brain that goes to dark places when you kind of think this way. This is very, very, very expensive to run this amount of ads in this broad way. And what's her name? Abby Shapiro. These aren't the only videos that I'm getting from these people. Her brother, Ben Shapiro, I think he still runs this site. At least he still is a talent on the site called The Daily Wire. He started it. He was one of the co-founders. And I get ads for that channel every day. And it's kind of an open secret where all that money is coming from. So at the same time, these people just have these endless, bottomless pockets to throw money at these Daily Wire, Abby Shapiro ads. Other news channels are like independent news channels having a much harder time to get a footing, and they don't have billionaire oil executives to throw money at ads for them.
If any billionaire oil executives are watching, please support me on Patreon or email me and we can work out a sponsorship deal. I can do paid promotions for oil. Hey, feeling stiff? Grease up with oil. Oil, the original lube. That was a freebie, Big Oil. You get one. I'm going to show you the reaction from one more channel, which is Fundy Fridays. And if you are not familiar, it is a delightful channel featuring the very clever and very funny individuals Jen and James. They are, I think, ex-Christians, currently atheists, and they do in-depth coverage of various religious cults and other fundamentalist organizations. They also talk shit about Classically Abby, because who doesn't?
I find Girl Defined slightly more tolerable than Abby, and they seem to be more compassionate too. Kristen and Bethany are both kind in that backhanded, bless your heart, southern kind of way. It's condescending, sure, but at least they're trying to pay lip service to the idea of their own imperfection. Abigail, however, would very much like you to know that she has it all together and is classic and totally awesome. She is an influencer and proud of it.
Now that I'm a conservative influencer, I get even more often the question of, does classic and conservative mean the same thing? How do you link those two ideas? And I am very certain that classic and conservative definitely go hand in hand. Those two concepts really influence each other and are informed by each other.
Abby drinks alcohol, classically of course.
So drinking as a classic woman is a little bit of a tricky thing. Getting drunk generally, not a proponent of, and getting drunk in public with a lot of people doesn't look very classic. And getting drunk in a public place is also dangerous for you because you don't know who's going to be there, who can take advantage of you, and how out of control you are.
Who's gonna tell her that the reason women have to be careful when they drink in public is because of rape culture? She's so close. So close to getting to the point. And Abby is also fine with birth control, provided that you have a hormonal imbalance. She does that a lot. She'll condone something, but with a caveat that you have to do it classically. She treats the word classic like it's the dictionary definition of things that Abby likes. I also would like to take the time to go on a tangent here about the word Judeo-Christian, because it's used a lot by conservative people, and I would like to explain what it means. Judeo-Christian is the distinctly American concept that Jews and Christians should be lumped together because they have supposedly similar values of faith, family, traditional gender roles. The term itself has roots in marketing that sought to recontextualize the United States as an inherently religious nation centered around a predominantly conservative Christian view of the world. It was developed to give Americans in the 1950s a common identity to stand up to the godless communists. And note that it is Judeo-Christian and not Abrahamic religions, because that would include Islam, and that is exclusionary on purpose. There's also the fact that Republicans love Jews because they love Israel, and I'm sorry, but I'm not going there. Abby's consistent and prominent use of the term is indicative of her worldview. Her husband, by the way, is just as lame, and he has recently been retweeting white supremacist propaganda, so that's disappointing.
So much of the time, it feels like one worldview, one position is tolerated. Many of them don't say outright what their politics are. Many of them do. None of them need to.
You have a YouTube channel. You're being tolerated. That's what being tolerated means. Not being tolerated means your YouTube channel is shut down, fucker. She takes very complex topics and ideas, glosses over them, repackages them into something easily digestible by a conservative audience, and goes out about her merry way like it's a fact of life.
So for this style of argument, the argument of don't tell others what to do with their bodies, we do that already, all the time. In the sense of, we tell people not to steal. We tell people not to commit murders. We tell people not to do things that affect other people. And so when you are pregnant and you want to abort your child, you are doing something that is affecting another person, the infant within you. At the end of the day,
so by your logic, you're awful passe about murder.
Again, this is the kind of argument that we can talk about
why ain't you
with a lot of different things.
sticking up for it more than this?
It doesn't hurt me directly when
you talk about them killing babies. You just filming a sassy YouTube video in front of a bland background.
When somebody gets murdered
Do more.
3 states away.
Be more.
But that doesn't mean that you should be able
the laziness
to do it.
of your activism
You've probably
belies
been in the
what you're
presence of
saying.
Several women. I don't look at women who have had abortions as criminals. I don't think that they did something knowingly. I think that there was a narrative sold to them that they should be.
So was it a murder or was it not a murder? This is what we've talked about over and over. Just like her brother, if you slow the tape down and don't let her dictate the pace of conversation, a lot of her arguments fall apart. Keep that in mind. You can break a lot of this down just by cutting the tape speed to 90-80% somewhere in there.
These so women, I think that's a typo, care so
Obviously,
much.
that's a typo.
Why don't they adopt kids that are homeless, hungry, and in and out of foster homes? So this is a false dichotomy that is very often brought up by people.
Oh, now we're going to talk about false dichotomies.
And the idea is that if you care about not murdering babies, then you must also adopt every child that is born and is put into foster care. That does.
No, you picked a poorly stated version of a very reasonable discussion point, which is, if you care so much about these babies and these women, then why do your other political stances put them at every disadvantage possible once that kid is born? You know damn well what people are upset about. You just choose to frame it in a very deceptive way to make your point seem better. Fuck off with that shit.
Couldn't have said it better myself. There is no cute way to be a conservative anymore. Cheers, Fun Day Fridays. Jolly good show. And with that, let's close the pink pill bottle on Classically Abby and hope she stays very much contained. I will be watching. There's one more pink pillar that we just have to talk about quickly. Caitlin Huber, aka Mrs. Midwest, Nazi pinup girl, as Jen so perfectly summarized. All you really need to know about Mrs. Midwest is that she stans Roosh V and Stefan Molyneux. Unlike them, however, she has not yet been banned from YouTube for hate speech, because she's a soft pink. Extremely soft. She pretty much says herself that she's mostly pink and fluffy with just a small nucleus of alt-right. Her YouTube videos are mostly about beauty and housework and how to be basically a 50s housewife, which is why Classically Abby endorses her. Mrs. Midwest has a lot more subscribers though, close to 200,000. Marie from the channel Marie CC did a fantastic video that pretty much says it all about Mrs. Midwest. The link is in the show notes, as are the links from all clips I have shown, and here are some highlights.
So Mrs. Midwest, like I said, is a blogger and a YouTuber. At the time I'm filming this, she has 175,000 subscribers on YouTube. She is a wife and stay-at-home mom-to-be. She blogs and makes videos about homemaking, femininity, or her definition of femininity, cooking, thrifting, baking, hanging out with her dog and her husband, pretty normal stuff. I don't know if I need to say this, but as a feminist, I have no issue with any woman wanting to be a homemaker or stay-at-home wife or mom. I think that's totally a personal choice, and I don't agree with anyone who is shaming someone or making someone feel bad for making that choice. But I do have issues with Caitlyn for a multitude of other reasons. She of course says some things that I don't agree with, but I do think when she talks about her beliefs or her religion on her channel, she does so in a way that is much less inflammatory than people like Paul and Morgan or like Girl Defined. And she wraps it all up in a very cute aesthetic package. It really does seem like her sweet exterior and kind of live and let live attitude may be a facade and kind of a cover for some pretty extreme beliefs that she holds.
Because my message can be kind of like intense for some people, like the things I believe, I like to pad it with, well, skincare and like how I clean my house, you know?
So the first thing I found was an interview that Caitlyn did in January of 2019 with YouTuber Yogi Oabs. He is a known misogynist, a promoter of neo-masculinity. He is a vocal anti-feminist. He advocates making women behave because they are naturally more sinful than men. So in this interview, Caitlyn mentions a blogger named Roosh V as inspiration for her traditional womanhood. She specifically cited his blog called Return of Kings. This blog was a sort of pickup artist dating advice website for men, all from a hyper misogynistic perspective. Caitlyn said she was looking for weight loss inspiration online, and that's how she found Return of Kings, and then got into reading more of this type of content. So I can't talk about Roosh V without mentioning his biggest claim to fame, which is that he once argued that rape should be legal on private property. This was in a 2015 blog post titled How to Stop. After getting a lot of obviously very well-deserved criticism for this article, Roosh V has since added this editor's note to this article on his website. I don't know who he thinks he's fooling. I'm not buying it. Here's an excerpt from it. If rape becomes legal under my proposal, a girl will protect her body in the same manner that she protects her purse and smartphone. If rape becomes legal, a girl will not enter an impaired state of mind where she can't resist being dragged off to a bedroom with a man who she is unsure of. She'll scream, yell, or kick at his attempt while bystanders are still around. If rape becomes legal, she will never be unchaperoned with a man she doesn't want to sleep with. After several months of advertising this law throughout the land, rape would be virtually eliminated on the first day it is applied. Yeah, why do us silly women just keep letting ourselves get raped? So yeah, sweet, innocent, feminine Caitlyn cites this blog as part of how she got into traditional womanhood and became red-pilled. In this interview, Caitlyn also openly denies that transgender women are women.
Anytime you look up how to be more feminine, it's literally for trans people. Like how to be a more feminine trans woman, you know?
Wow.
It's not for women. There's nothing out there for women to say, here's how to be more feminine. And that was disturbing to me.
So this has all been a nice dose of misogyny, and perhaps unsurprisingly, a lot of this really misogynistic incel red pill ideology goes hand in hand with alt-right and white supremacist ideology. So you can probably see where I'm heading with this. So perhaps one of the most damning pieces of evidence regarding Caitlyn's alleged white supremacist leanings is from her blog. It's a post from July of 2019 titled 20 Things I Recommend. One of the 20 things she recommends is YouTube history lessons by Stephen Molyneux, who is a known and very shameless white supremacist. She just tosses that in there with like a cookie recipe and a brand of laundry detergent she likes, literally. So Stephen Molyneux describes himself as a race realist. He basically promotes scientific racism, which is the pseudoscientific idea that non-white races are genetically inferior in any multitude of ways. I don't think I need to say this, but race realism is absolute nonsense, not real science. It's just an attempt at justifying white supremacy. But I'll share some notable quotes of his. Screaming racism at people because blacks are collectively less intelligent is insane. He has defended Nazism and the as, quote, an overreaction to Jewish people being a legitimate threat to the white race. Here's his quote. It's from a video called Migratory Patterns of Predatory Immigrants in March of 2016. The Germans were in danger of being taken over by what they perceived as Jewish-led communism, and Jewish-led communism had wiped out tens of millions of white Christians in Russia, and they were afraid of the same thing. And there was this wild overreaction and all this kind of stuff. Don't you hate it when you just overreact and genocide 6 million people? So just let that soak in for a minute, and then I'm going to read you the direct quote from Mrs. Midwest's blog where she recommends Stephen Molyneux's work. She says, "I'm a big fan of this man and his philosophy. It's brash, offensive, and my favorite type of YouTube content. I love his presentations in particular because they combine culture, history, and philosophy into one amazing learning lesson." So the actual video that Mrs. Midwest recommended, it was called The Fall of Rome. I can't watch because Stephen Molyneux's YouTube account was actually banned and deleted for promoting hate speech. The only thing I could find about this video was a post, funnily enough, on the subreddit Bad History. It gives a pretty detailed summary and basically debunks the entire thing. I'll link it below if you do want to check it out. But his video was basically a largely inaccurate comparison of the US to ancient Rome. From what I can see, this video does seem to be a little lighter on the rape than a lot of his other videos, which kind of fits my theory that Caitlyn is very careful about which beliefs of hers she openly promotes on her channel and on her social media. But the fact that she recommends this guy and says she is, quote, a big fan of his philosophy, I think tells us all we need to know.
Oh my gosh, if she isn't just the perfect gateway drug for the alt-right, then I don't know what is. Lest you accuse me of being alarmist, Ms. Samantha Bee has a little something to show you. Spoiler, everything I've been saying is exactly right, and taking the pink pill turns women into QAnoners.
QAnon, as everyone knows, is the bullshit right-wing conspiracy theory accusing Democrats and celebrities such as Tom Hanks of worshiping Satan, drinking blood, and trafficking children. I have to emphasize that these claims are completely baseless. Tom Hanks would never do anything to harm a child, except for making the Polar Express. But what you may not know is that in the last year, white women have been joining QAnon in droves, and now they have become the primary drivers of Q. It's largely thanks to social media posts with gateway messaging about child trafficking that many people wouldn't find objectionable.
It starts with something small. So child trafficking is real. Sex trafficking is real, and it's a real problem. It wasn't starting off like these celebrities are drinking these kids' blood. And I was like, yep, I'm going to believe that. It didn't start that way.
These conspiracy theories try to appeal to a mother's primal need to protect her children and have particularly proliferated among holistic living and natural birth communities. And in fact, to even question conspiracies about kids being in danger can make it seem as if you don't care about kids at all. I know messaging like this may seem intense, but don't worry, because it's pink and pretty.
There's a certain look that's taken over everything. A certain color palette, kind of font, and design. Today, this visual style sells us meal kits and underwear, but it's also showing up here in seemingly harmless, trendy Instagram posts about child trafficking.
While these women didn't necessarily use the word QAnon, the language in their posts and hashtags often mirrored conspiracy theories swirling around on Q message boards, leading one expert to give this trend a name, Pastel QAnon.
I guess that's at least better than the first name they gave it, Crazy Bitch Shit.
What more needs to be said? The feminist movement is in decline, but the female right-wing extremist movement is climbing right up their corkscrew. Jeez Louise, the margin by which Joe Biden won the 2020 election was frighteningly, heart attack-inducingly narrow. At least 28 women were arrested for storming the U.S. Capitol on January 6th. Amy Coney Barrett, the newest U.S. Supreme Court Justice who was appointed by Donald Trump, believes that abortion is immoral. She believes it's okay to pass abortion punishment provisions, APP laws, that, for example, restrict the operations of abortion facilities. A significant number of states have been recently enacting APP laws, as we have previously covered on Habeas Humor, and the need for abortions is unlikely to decrease because of the way schools in the U.S. are educating our young women and men. Currently, there are only 18 states out of 50 that require sex education to include education on birth control methods. Oklahoma has a law that requires the state's health department and local schools to provide educational materials to the public that clearly and consistently teach abortion kills a living human being. Only 9 states currently require discussion of LGBTQ identities and relationships to be inclusive and affirming. 7 states either prohibit sex educators from discussing or answering questions about LGBTQ identities and relationships, or actually require sex educators to frame LGBTQ identities and relationships negatively. The fight for women's equality and autonomy has two different fronts: the resistance by men and the resistance by women. So don't sit on the sidelines. We need you. Call to action number 1 is drown out the pink pillars. First of all, don't let them slip under the radar and don't discuss them as non-threatening. Expose them, critique them, and if you can, get on your own podcast, blog, social media, YouTube channel, what have you, and voice the other side. Call to action number 2 is support feminists and leftists in the media. Like me. I worked that in. Seriously, if you like what I do, please support me on Patreon. If you have no spare money, that's fine. If you have some spare money, but you prefer to support one of my peers, that's also fine. But please give your support where you can. Remember, the right-wingers get more donations and funding because they are backed by more big corporations and also by devoted extremist individuals who put their money and their votes where their mouth is. It's not just about money, though. There's also so much you can do that is free. You have no idea how much a click on the like button or the subscribe button or the 5-star rating button helps a show. Every one of those clicks is heard by the algorithm that decides what shows get recommended on the platform. Please do that to show your support. Someone said to me recently that they were concerned about privacy or something like that. I can't say for sure, but I like and subscribe to tons of shows, and I'm fine. I'm alive. I'm here. Everything's okay. Please also share feminist content on social media. It is super important, and don't let people intimidate you into being afraid to use the F word. Feminist is our fucking word. Use it. Call to action number 3 is get the crusty old white men out of the lawmaker positions and put in women, or at least people who are progressive and feminist. This is super important, especially in the state legislatures where hardly anyone pays attention to who their representatives are. Run for office if you can, become the next AOC, or throw your support behind someone else who you think could become the next AOC. Call to action number 4 is donate to the ACLU, Planned Parenthood, and or other organizations fighting for women's rights and reproductive freedoms. I have an automatic subscription thingy where I send a few bucks every month to the ACLU. I'm not very financially well off at all, and I definitely could use that money for 100 other things, but if organizations like the ACLU do not have donations, then literally no one is going to bring cases to challenge unconstitutional laws. Like I said on a previous episode, those lawsuits don't get filed by lawsuit fairies. They get filed by public service organizations that rely on donations. What the hell, let's do one more. Call to action number 5, give a big old dislike to the content of Mrs. Midwest, Classically Abby, Girl Defined, and basically every other anti-feminist you come across. Don't be hateful or crude, just exercise your right to respectfully disagree. I feel like there was one more thing I wanted y'all to do. Audience participation, playing along at home. That's what it was. Audience participation. Participate. It's fun. Previously, I asked what your favorite train wreck TV show is and why. My favorite response comes from @GregMetcalfFOC, who says their favorite train wreck TV show was Eliminate. Ah, good old Eliminate. The show where every date was guaranteed to end in rejection not once, not twice, but 3 times. And as Greg points out, it was mostly based on silly superficiality. For audience participation this time, tell me what you think about your favorite or least favorite pink pillar. You can use the ones discussed here or any of the many others out there. Compose your thoughts in a social media post, share the link to this episode if you remember, tag Habeas Humor, and hashtag it HHAP. I will present my favorites on the next show. I look really forward to reading these. It's time to thank our awesome patrons. Without you, this show wouldn't make me so blue. This show is made possible by the pledges of generous and wonderful people who contribute via Patreon. Just like the pianists at Marie's Crisis, I work for tips, so if you have $1 per episode to send my way visit habeashumor.com or go straight to patreon.com/habehumor. The link is in the notes accompanying this episode. Every new patron gets a personal thank you upon pledging. If you pledge $5 or more per episode, you get a shout out on every show, plus a jarone. Please make sure I have your current shipping address if I owe you a jarone. The current hero humorists pledging $5 per episode are Phil S., It's-A Me, and Leona F., aka my mom. The Herculean humorists pledging $10 and up per show are Brian B. and top patron Dan Griffith. Thank you so much to all the patrons, and thank you to everyone watching or listening. Once again, please support by liking, subscribing, and sharing. I got a ton of backlash for the Lock Trump Up episode, so the like to dislike ratio on that one is quite bad. If you could therefore click like on my videos, that would be awesome. Our website, habeashumor.com, is your one-stop shop for watching, listening, supporting, communicating, and sending your friends. Check it out and follow us on the social media. As always, do not take any legal advice from this show. It is for entertainment only. Do not make the mistake of thinking that you and I have an attorney-client relationship, because that's not how it works. And believe me, that's a good thing. The attached notes contain links to the sources used in this episode, as well as how to find Habeas Humor all over the interwebs. Until next time, please continue to shelter in place and social distance. Wear your PPE, get the vaccine if you can, and stay legal, my friends.